Hey, beautiful people. I'm Robert H. Johnson Jr., founder of RHA Consulting Group and author of the best-selling book, Safe, Seen, Heard, and Valued, a leadership guide for creating and cultivating a psychologically safe culture. And today I want to take some time to answer a question that I get often from clients, friends, people that I mentor and coach. And that's why did I decide to leave corporate America? And this is a story I haven't shared very, very often. And I feel like I probably, compartmentalized the story. And I wanted to share that with you. And I hope as I share my story, you may see yourself in my story. But more than anything, I hope that you are inspired to take action and agency over your own corporate and hopefully eventually entrepreneurial story. So my career was absolutely an amazing one in terms of I was the first person in my family to graduate college and the first person to enter corporate America. And because I didn't have a blueprint, that makes my story for me that much more God ordained. And no other person or thing can take credit for it than God. And so after college, I dove into corporate America, made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot of lessons, and eventually found myself in financial services, which I really, really loved. One of the best experiences you can have to learn about, how to manage money is in banking, learning from people who are managing their money well. And so for anybody out there who's looking for a part-time job and or, a new career, consider, becoming a teller, a personal banker, branch management. And so that's where I started my career. And so I was able to very early on build relationships, connect with my team in a way that helped us to perform, very cohesively, not perfectly, but pretty cohesive. And eventually I left the initial company that I was with for the second bank, that I worked for, which was ultimately, the last bank that I really worked for on the retail side. And in this, new organization, I had climbed the corporate ladder. I was at a director level at this point in my previous organization and now in this one. And what was really cool about my story or different is that I navigated from branch management to director level management, market strategy, which was a unique and cool role, and also change management. So I was coming to the table with this new company with a very diverse perspective and more importantly, diverse and proven experience. And so did the same thing at this company, started, as a district manager, moved onto the mortgage side, and eventually left when I was in sales and service. One of the things that's very important about the story at this point, being 8+ year in my career, was that I was able to find great mentors and coaches along my career journey. People that believed in me, that valued me, that saw my potential, that helped me to maximize my potential within the organization. And so that's what I had grown accustomed to until my last role at the second bank. I was doing well, had a really good direct manager at the time, and then there was an organizational change. And when this organizational change happened, I was excited because it meant that I was going to be able to do something different with the organization. That's also one of the keys to building a successful career, and more importantly, building a successful set of skill sets, competencies, and knowledge. And that'll be important as we go through the story. And so when this change happened, I got a new leader. Let's just call her Katie. And Katie was a very, cool person. I met her before. We had positive interactions, but I had never directly worked for her, right? But I still, I respected her. She, climbed corporate America's ladder and was doing pretty well. And what I was excited about is that she had a more strategic lens. So being able to learn from someone who worked in strategy much more longer than I did. I worked in, as I mentioned, financial services on the consumer side, which was really more in the sales customer experience strategy space. But when you're talking about going into corporate America and you're working for one of the largest banks in the world, it's a strategy is essential. And I was getting an opportunity to become better at a strategy and ultimately becoming a strategist, which helped me to then be able to start my own business. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, Katie and I had a really positive rapport. But at the time that this organizational change happened, I was also at a stage and point in my life where I was beginning to question, what do I want to do next? Where do I want to be? What experiences do I want to have? And so one of our first meetings, sort of a one-on-one, I asked her, hey, what are your aspirations or visions for my career? Because at the end of the day, your leader plays a role and has a responsibility to help you achieve your goals, but a lot of times they also have a vision for you. And it's important to calibrate and ensure that their vision aligns with yours and yours with theirs so that there's not misalignment. And so I talked to her. She sounded very supportive. And again, I was excited to potentially, be working with her. And so what I decided to do was go deeper in my own thought and prayer and just what do I really want to do? And I decided that if I'm going to adjust, adapt, and do great work in this new org, I want to go back to school. I wanted to do something different. And so I put a document together, which was for me, not for her. That's the other thing. Remember, your career is your business and your business are yours. You are at the end of the day, um, you're, an independent and or free agent. And you may be signed to a team for X number of years. That team could cut you early. That team can transfer you or trade you, excuse me, early. The same things happen in corporate America, right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, I had developed a set of skills, competencies, relationships, but I was at a point where I knew I had a valuable knowledge base and I wanted to add to that base. And so I decided to meet with Katie one day and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Would you support me in going back to get my master's degree? And although I really didn't want to go back to school, if I'm just being honest, I knew I wanted to do something. And if the company was going to sponsor and support me in doing that, I would have done it. And she said, well, no, I don't think that's something that, we are willing to sponsor at this time. Now, mind you, she, along with other executives and leaders that I knew and were acquainted with, the company had sponsored them to go back to school to get their advanced degree. And so for me, I knew it was not truthful. And that was the deciding factor. I pitched other things, concepts, would you do this? And she kept saying no, but no, not and, no, but. There was never a compromise of, hey, here's Robert, here's what we're willing to do to support you, Robert. You've been a dynamic performer, you've built great teams, you built businesses within this business because I stood up the office of the home equity customer office. So when a customer would have an issue, a problem, or concern, their deal wasn't going through, they were frustrated. My team that I built the strategy for, the team around, would resolve those issues and help move deals forward, help deliver, not so great news, but do it in a very thoughtful way. Ultimately, we were the problem resolution aspect of the home equity process. And so I knew that I was able to do good work or continue to do good work if the company was going to support me. Something clicked when we had that organizational change, and I decided the company will move me as a chess piece, right? It's time for me to now take control of my experience and move myself. And so after the discussion with her, and I didn't see any true commitment to my development, to my growth, and I only saw a transaction, I knew that it was time for me to exit. Now, prior to making that decision, again, remember, I was already in a mindset and a phase of what do I want to do next? How do I want to grow? What experiences do I want to have? Right. And so I was primed to be confident to one, have a conversation, to two, get whatever the answer was, yes or no. Three, most importantly, to make a decision with the information that I was provided. Too often we make decisions off of hope, off of believing in something or someone without actually testing and confirming that they have the capacity, the willingness, and the desire to do it for us. God designed me for a specific purpose. He called me to use the power wherever I sit, wherever I stand, wherever I take up space to make the experience of the people to my left, right, up and down better, right? That's why I now work in culture and belonging and leadership development. And so that was one of the hardest decisions I made, but it was one of the most important decisions I could have made to walk away from a healthy six-figure salary. And I got some form of a severance package. It wasn't 6 months, it wasn't a year, but I trusted God enough to say, God, you gave me the thought, the unction in my gut that it was time for a change, whether it was educationally, whether it was experientially, or whether it was time to be exposed to something different. And this new role and the new leader weren't going to be able to provide those things to me. And so I want to encourage, and I share this story because I've never really shared this story publicly. Anyone out there that is in a place, a space of their life and in their career where they know God has given you a vision that it's time for you to elevate, where God has given you some idea and reminder of the confidence that you should have in yourself. Because one, you're a child of God. Two, you have experience, you have and continue to contribute value to the spaces that you occupy in your business and or the organization that you work for. You can't depend on someone else to constantly affirm and confirm you other than God. And once God has confirmed you, everything else is an affirmation of that, right? Once you get a sign from God that it's time to go, people will be moved out of the way, jobs will be lost, relationships will change, your mindset will evolve because you're in a space of transformation. And so for me, I knew from what God had shown me. I knew from how I was feeling. I knew from the confirmation of through the conversations that I was willing to have courageously that it was time for me to make a shift. And so that's my corporate dropout story. And fun fact, I literally became known as the corporate dropout when I left that company in that role. But before I physically left and was physically a corporate dropout, I had to establish a belief system in my mind. I had to take actions that aligned with that belief system that ultimately led to the outcome of leaving corporate America, starting a business, and eventually, right, building a successful business. If you're in that space and you feel like you you need to make a change, it's time to make a change, you need to have a conversation that will confirm or affirm, right? Reach out. I'd love to hear your story. That's my mission. My purpose is to enable, empower, and equip leaders from the inside out. Because before you are a leader outside to a team or, within an organization, it starts with personal leadership. So I hope this story has been informative, inspiring, and that you found some nuggets for yourself. If you want to hear more and join me on this journey, I'm committed to equipping and supporting people just like you and me who may not have the resources, who may not have the capacity, but most certainly want to transform their lives. Give me a follow, give me a like, DM me, and I'd love to support you on your journey of becoming exactly the leader that God has called you to be. Let's grow.